Hey guys, this is God of Politics. Welcome back to a brand new video. But before we get started with this video, please like this video and please subscribe to the channel. Also, follow me on Twitter, that is linked down in the description and on my channel page right over here. And join the Discord as well, that is also linked down in the description. But today we're going to be talking about the California's 25th District Congressional election, the special election, the results from those from this election, and it's actually good news for Republicans. I did get the prediction wrong. I did predict that Kirsten Smith would win by 2 to 3 points. Mike Garcia ended up winning by 12 points, which really nobody predicted that he would win that much. Obviously, we only have 76% of the vote reporting, but there are some reasons that Garcia has won by the margin that he has won by. Or unless this does tighten, it could tighten, it could get even larger if you look at what's been happening. But I do believe that Mike Garcia has pulled off a very large victory. It's pulled off a very good victory for him. But there's many ways and there's many reasons to why he won this district. This was a district that was held by Republicans up until 2018 when Katie Hill flipped this seat. Katie Hill had the whole scandal and everything. She then resigned. This was the special election for that district. And there will be a rematch of this district come November. Christy Smith will be going off against Mike Garcia again come November. And you could see that it does flip because, as we'll talk about in a second, there was very low turnout for this election that may be a little bit different in 2018. And so what we're going to look at this in terms of this election, we can see that the 2018 vote total, if we look over here, the 2018 vote total was 245,022 votes. That was the vote total from 2018 here. And then this election, we have 75% of the vote reporting, but with 100% vote reporting, we're going to get approximately 191,000 votes. That's approximately 75% of the votes from 2018. And 2018 was a wave year as well for Democrats. Democrats did have increased turnout, but really there was a really low turnout in this election. If we look at the New York Times here, they have people talking about what's going on here. You can see that there's a voting gap first among ethnic lines. While 40% of white voters return their mail-in ballots, only 21% of Latino voters did so. So that's something that is good for Republicans there, that Latino voters did not turn as many mail-in ballots as the white voters did. The white voters are more Republican, the Latino voters are more Democratic. And another thing here, showing it among generational lines, 56% of voters 65 and older returned a mail-in ballot, whereas only 19% of those younger than 35, and younger than 35 is a large margin, it's 18 to 35. That's a 17-year range, and only 19% of those people, meaning that a lot of these people got sent to mail-in ballot, and most of them did not vote. That is really bad news for Democrats. It is somewhat of an explanation as to why Democrats lost this district. If you do it at the same rates, if 56% of young voters had done it and 40% of Latino voters had done it, Democrats would have won this district. And that's something you're going to have to look at. But again, in regular elections, those kinds of voters, those voter demographics still do have lower turnout rates overall. If you look at general elections, young voters still only have 50% turnout rates. Latino voters only have 50% turnout rates, whereas white voters and older voters have the highest turnout rates. Those are the best voters, most reliable voters for the Republicans, at least they used to be. There's a whole nother argument about how they're changing. But that is kind of the reason as to why Republicans did win this district. They won pretty resoundingly as well. I mean, Democrats did downplay the expectations going into this race. At first, it looked like Kirsten Smith was going to win just after the special primary, the primary on March 3rd for it. And now it's looking like she is going to. Then in the later stages, the last week or so, it looked like she was going to lose, and indeed she did lose, but nobody thought she would lose by 12 points because nobody really predicted how bad the turnout will be. And if you want to look ahead to November and say how much does this result matter for November, you could go out on a limb, go out on a stretch, and say that it matters because Republicans are gaining with suburban voters in LA County and Ventura County. I somewhat disagree with that notion. I don't believe that this is kind of a buck of the trends trending back towards the red column in districts that used to be there. There are areas, Republican Reagan areas, that are now becoming Clinton areas, Hillary Clinton areas. I don't believe that's going to continue happening. I believe that all or most of the districts that trended from Trump to Hillary Clinton will stay with Joe Biden. I don't believe they're going to go back to Donald Trump, especially not the suburban districts. Joe Biden might do a bit better amongst rural voters, a bit better amongst suburban voters, a bit better amongst urban voters. I don't really think he's going to do worse, especially in suburban areas, which are trending Democratic at all levels of government, and they have been for quite some time now, especially in the state of California, which at the presidential level is really not going to mean much either. There's only a couple more districts that you could say the Republicans could flip in California. There's California's 31st, I believe, California's 41st, something like that, that they might be able to flip, but as of now, I don't think that's going to happen. And before we talk about California's 25th district a bit more, we can also see that Wisconsin's 7th district election that was expected to go to Republicans by quite a large margin did go by quite a large margin. Tom Tiffany won by 15 points. And if you look at the 2018 results, in 2018, the Republican won by 22 points. Not much really to talk about with that. This is an open election that was with an incumbent. There's many different stories as to why that is. But yeah, Tom Tiffany did win by 15 points in this district as well. And overall, just going back to California's 25th district, looking at this overall, turnout is really the most important thing. If everybody turned out, especially amongst young people and Latino voters, Joe Biden would win. Because if you look at the turnout rates amongst younger voters and Latino voters, if you can turn out those voters, Democrats will do miles better. And when you see that they don't turn out in this election, you can see that's why they lost. They lost because the voters that they got in 2018, the new voters that they got in 2018, the voters that they were able to turn out in 2016, the voters they were able to turn out in 2018 that they weren't able to turn out in 2016, it did go to their benefit. And unless if they're not able to do that, then they're probably going to lose. They're going to lose the Rust Belt because they can't turn out black voters in the cities. They're going to lose the suburbs because they can't shift enough voters to their side in the Atlanta suburbs, in Maricopa County, and Johnson County, in all these suburban areas that are going to make the states closer. And unless they can flip those areas, they're not going to do as well. And that's something that really, it should worry Joe Biden, because Joe Biden does have an enthusiasm gap, and unless Joe Biden can make up that enthusiasm gap, he's going to have quite a problem on his hands, because you need people, especially in this day and age, to get out the vote, to tell people, because mail-in ballots are going, like, they probably will go across the country if you're thinking realistically, if this crisis continues, and people are going to be voting for mail, and if you have rates where only 19% of young people are returning a ballot, that's 30% lower than it would be if they had to vote in person, and that's awful if you're looking at it. And again, this is a special election. Again, it says here, Jennifer Medina says it's very idiosyncratic. That is true. There's very different circumstances to this race. There's problems with equating this race to many other races, but there are ways you can. The number one thing is the turnout. If Democrats cannot increase turnout amongst their voters, they're not going to win, and that is especially for Latino voters and for young voters. The suburban voters that are shifting towards their column are going to turn out for one person or another. How does a Democrat or Republican? In general, they have higher turnout rates. It's the urban city voters. Joe Biden will probably get the same margin. It's just how many of those voters can he turn out? Because we've seen that in the primaries he did very well against with African American voters. He hasn't done too well with Latino voters, and he hasn't done too well with young voters. As we can see in this election, those are the two demographic groups that the Democratic Christy Smith did the worst with in terms of turning them out, because only 21% of Latinos turned out, and only 19% of younger voters returned a mail-in ballot as well. And so, again, I just have to reiterate it. Democrats, if they want to win, they have to turn out the vote. That's something that's worrisome for Biden. It's worrisome for Democrats. And this is kind of just a sign of it. But I wouldn't equate this too much to the presidential election results. Nobody really predicted that the turnout would be this bad. And it won't be this bad in November. But this is a sign for Democrats that you need to turn out the vote. Otherwise, you will lose. So, thank you all for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter, link down in the description and on my channel page, and join the Discord that is linked down in the description, and I will see you guys later.